All right, so get this. We're doing a deep dive on this manifestation concept that kind of blew my mind. It's called the law of balance.
Okay.
And we're going through this YouTube video by this coach, Neyah.
Uh-huh.
And she's saying that this law is like this secret thing that a lot of manifestation teachers just skip right over.
Interesting.
She even compares the universe to like a simulation
Oh, wow.
with rules. And if we know the rules, we can kind of hack it.
That's intriguing. I've always thought there's more to manifestation than just like think it and it'll come.
Yeah,
Like there's got to be some kind of checks and balances system in the universe.
that's exactly what she's saying.
Okay.
Like, the law of assumption says whatever you believe becomes true.
Right.
She's arguing there's this other thing at play, the law of balance.
Okay.
And if we can learn how to use that, it might be like this secret key to
Explain this whole law of balance. Where does she even begin with that?
It's kind of a complex idea, but she uses this video game analogy, which I thought was pretty clever.
Yeah. She says, imagine the universe is like a huge video game, and we've got like free will to make choices in the game,
Okay.
but we can't rewrite the code of the game.
Right.
We're like characters that have to play within the rules.
That's interesting.
And that's where this thing she calls the pendulum swing principle comes in.
Pendulum swing principle.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
She's basically saying that everything in the universe works in this balanced back and forth kind of rhythm.
Like a pendulum?
Yeah, exactly. Like a pendulum.
Okay. I can picture that. Can you give me some examples of how that works, like in real life?
Sure. So like think of day and night.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah.
They always go back and forth.
Yeah.
Or high tides and low tides.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like this constant push and pull to find balance.
That makes sense.
She even talks about politics, how ideologies swing back and forth between like liberal and conservative over time.
Interesting.
It's like this universal dance of like give and take. So are you saying if we apply this to manifestation, that there's like a natural ebb and flow to getting what we want?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it gets kind of tricky.
Okay.
Because she says when we get too fixated on something,
Like really wanting that dream job.
yes, or like obsessing over a specific person,
Yeah.
it can actually mess with the pendulum.
You mean like push it too far one way?
Exactly. And then it swings way too far in the other direction.
Okay.
And that can lead to getting the opposite of what you want.
Really?
Yeah, she calls them opposite manifestations.
So like the more you want something, the less likely you are to get it.
Kind of. It's like that intense desire actually creates resistance.
Oh, wow. That's a head scratcher.
Yeah, it is.
So are you saying the key is to like detach from what you want?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. But how do you detach from something you really, really want?
Well, that's something she gets into in the video.
Okay.
But before we go there, I think it's important to understand why this whole detachment thing, this balance thing, is so crucial.
Yeah, I agree. If we understand why this pendulum affects our reality,
Right.
then figuring out how to work with it might make more sense.
Exactly.
So let's dig deeper into like what actually happens when the pendulum swings too far.
Okay.
Like what's going on there that causes resistance?
Well, she says it's about the energy we're putting out there.
Right.
When we're desperate or attached, we're basically sending this message of lack.
Like I don't have this thing and I need it.
Exactly. And she says that energy can actually push away what we want.
Because it reinforces the fact that we don't have it yet.
Right. It's like we're confirming to the universe that we're lacking.
So the universe is responding not just to our thoughts, but to the feeling behind them.
That's what she's saying.
Interesting.
And that's actually why she thinks those robotic affirmations can work.
You mean just repeating affirmations over and over even if you don't really feel them?
Yeah.
Because you're not putting all your emotions into it.
Right. You're just stating it as a fact.
Like tricking the universe. So if clinging to our desires backfires, then what does she say we should do instead?
Well, she gives some good advice on that,
Okay.
which we'll get into in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, I'm hooked.
But first, I'm curious, what are your initial thoughts on this pendulum swing thing?
Does it resonate with you?
Yeah.
Definitely, I've had experiences with manifestation where I think I pushed things away by being too focused on them.
Really?
And then other things just flowed into my life without me even trying that hard.
It's like that saying, a watch pot never boils.
Yeah.
The more we obsess over something,
Yeah.
the longer it takes to manifest.
So the question is, how do we detach from the outcome
Right.
without like losing sight of what we're trying to achieve?
Exactly. How do we balance intention with surrender?
I'm really curious to hear what she says about that.
Let's get into that after this.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we actually use this law of balance.
Like, how do we walk that line between setting intentions and just letting go?
Right. It all sounds kind of mystical.
Well, Naya gives some practical steps in the second half of her video.
Oh, right.
She talks about these, like, passcodes.
Passcodes.
Yeah, almost like cheat codes in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
She says if you understand the law of balance, it's like unlocking these shortcuts in the manifestation process.
Okay, so instead of grinding away level after level,
Right.
we can use these codes to get what we want faster.
Exactly. So the first code, and I think this is really important, is awareness.
Awareness.
Once you get this whole pendulum swing idea,
Yeah.
you start to see it everywhere.
Oh, really?
It's like you put on these new glasses and suddenly you see all these patterns you never noticed before.
So the first step is to notice when the pendulum's swinging out of control in our own lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can consciously choose to bring it back to center.
Okay, so like if I'm super stressed about work,
Yeah.
I should try to do something relaxing.
Right. It's about catching yourself when you're spiraling and making an effort to shift your energy.
That sounds like it takes a lot of self-awareness.
It definitely does. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But Naya says even those opposite manifestations can be helpful.
The ones where you get the opposite of what you want.
Yeah, because they're like wake-up calls.
Oh, I see.
It's like the universe is saying, hey, you're getting off track here.
Time to adjust.
Exactly. So instead of seeing setbacks as failures,
Yeah.
we can see them as feedback.
Like the universe is nudging us in the right direction.
That's the idea. But here's the thing, awareness isn't enough.
Oh, okay.
Naya says we also need persistence,
Okay.
but not the kind where you're just forcing things. It's
Wow.
more like informed persistence, driven by wisdom and understanding these universal laws.
So it's not about like clinging to our desires,
No.
but more like moving towards them with this trust in the process.
Yes, exactly. It's about trusting the process even when things aren't going exactly how we planned.
Okay.
And Naya believes that understanding this law of balance actually helps us let go of some of the fear and doubt
Oh, interesting.
that can sabotage our manifestation.
Because if you know that setbacks are just part of the pendulum swing,
Right.
then you don't have to freak out when things go wrong.
Exactly. It helps you stay on track.
That makes sense.
And it brings us to one of her main points.
Okay.
We can choose to stay centered and grounded.
Even when things are chaotic.
Yeah, she uses this analogy of being a surfer riding the waves.
Oh, I like that.
So instead of getting tossed around by the waves,
Right.
we can learn to surf them.
Ride them with skill.
Exactly. And she says when we can stay centered in the middle of all the chaos,
Yeah.
that's when the law of assumption can really work.
It's like we're creating from a place of power, not fear.
Exactly. It's like finding that sweet spot where we're both directing our reality
Right.
and surrendering to something bigger than ourselves.
So we're active participants in the manifestation process.
Yes,
But we're also learning to dance with the universe.
that's a good way to put it. And Naya ends her video by saying understanding the law of balance is like cracking the code of the matrix. It's about seeing through the illusion of control and understanding how reality really works.
And once we understand those rules, we can start to play the game better.
Absolutely. It's like leveling up in the game of life.
So how do you think understanding this law can actually change someone's approach to manifestation?
Like, what are some takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah.
I think the biggest shift is moving away from this mindset of force and struggle
Okay.
and moving towards a mindset of allowing and trust.
Letting go.
Yeah, it's recognizing that the universe has its own rhythm.
Uh-huh.
And when we align with that rhythm, manifestation becomes easier.
It's about surrendering to the wisdom of the universe,
Right.
knowing that even when things don't go as planned, there's a bigger picture.
It takes away some of the pressure we put on ourselves.
Definitely.
Naya also talks about the importance of gratitude.
Oh,
When we focus on what we already have,
Yeah.
it shifts our energy from lack to abundance.
And that attracts more good things into our lives.
Exactly. Gratitude is so powerful.
It is.
And I think the last piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
and maybe the hardest part,
What's that?
is cultivating that unwavering faith.
Faith in the universe.
Yeah, trusting that the universe has our back even when we can't see the path ahead.
It's a tough one.
It is, but it's so important.
Mhm.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious what's resonating most with you.
What are you taking away from this?
For me, it's the reminder that we're not really in control.
You mean of everything.
Yeah, and that's okay.
It's actually kind of freeing.
Yeah, it is. It lets us stop trying to force things to happen and start listening to the universe.
It's about letting go of the need to micromanage everything
Exactly, and trusting that there's something bigger guiding us.
towards our highest good.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about.
Oh, what's that?
Neyah mentions some specific techniques for working with the law of balance.
Like actual tools we can use.
Yeah, I'm dying to know what those are.
Me too. I'm ready to take this manifestation game to the next level.
Let's get into those right now. Okay, so we've been talking about this law of balance,
Yeah.
and I really want to get to the practical stuff.
Okay.
Like, how do we actually use it?
Right.
Neyah talks about these specific techniques we can try,
Cool.
almost like secret weapons for manifesting. In the last part, we were talking about that sweet spot between intention and surrender.
Yeah, riding the waves of the universe.
But how do we actually do that?
Right. It all sounds kind of vague.
Well, Neyah gives some pretty concrete advice, actually.
Oh, that's good.
She starts by saying that balance isn't about ignoring our desires
Okay.
or becoming passive.
Phew. I was worried we were going to have to just give up on our goal.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's more about changing our approach.
How so?
Instead of like forcing our way toward a specific outcome,
Yeah.
we need to shift our energy.
To match what we want.
Right. But how do we change our energy if it feels stuck?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that's where her techniques come in.
Okay.
One of the most interesting ones is called pendulum pushing.
Pendulum pushing.
It's about kind of leaning into the opposite of what you're experiencing.
Oh, I see.
To create a counterswing.
So, like, if I'm feeling anxious about something,
Yeah.
I should try to relax.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive,
Kind of.
but she's saying that by creating that swing in the opposite direction, you're actually building momentum towards what you want.
Like pulling back a slingshot.
Exactly.
So we're using the ebb and flow to our advantage.
Right. Are there any other techniques?
That was a good one.
Another one that I really liked is called gratitude surfing.
Gratitude surfing.
It's about using gratitude to shift your energy
Okay.
and ride the waves of abundance.
I like that.
She says to make a list of things you're grateful for
Okay.
and focus on those feelings, especially when you're feeling down.
So even when things aren't going well.
Yeah, it's like intentionally tuning your frequency to abundance. She even says to visualize yourself already having the things you want
Oh, wow.
while you're feeling that gratitude.
So it's like tricking your mind into believing it's already real.
Exactly. And she says that's when the magic happens.
When we let go of control,
Yeah, and just trust that the universe is working for us
then we can really start to receive.
in ways we never imagined.
So we're aligning our energy
Uh-huh.
and then getting out of the way.
Yes, and letting the universe do its thing.
I think that's a really important point.
Me too. It's not about manipulating the universe
Right.
or forcing things.
It's more about going with the flow
Yeah, and trusting the process.
and finding that inner peace
Exactly. So we can create from a place of harmony.
and abundance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on the law of balance,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with this.
Good.
Pay attention to those pendulum swings in your own life.
Hmm.
Are you holding on too tight to a specific outcome?
Good
Are
question.
you resisting the natural ups and downs?
Makes you think.
Try out Neyah's techniques.
Like pendulum pushing.
Yeah, and gratitude surfing.
Okay.
See what happens when you shift your energy.
And align with the universe.
And most importantly, trust the journey.
Even when it's challenging.
Believe that you're being guided towards something good.
Yeah. Have faith.
The universe has your back.
Awesome advice. So keep those intentions clear.
Right.
Your heart's open.
Yes.
And your energy balanced.
And who knows what you might manifest.
The possibilities are endless.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive.
Into the world of personal growth and transformation.
Until then, keep exploring, keep evolving.
And keep manifesting.